All right,
kids.
item number 8, Yuba City Landscape Maintenance District number 1, Stabler Lane, Garden Highway area. Yuba City Lighting and Landscape Maintenance Districts number 2, 3, 4, and 5, Town Center, and 69 subdivisions throughout Yuba City, and the Yuba City Lighting and Landscape Maintenance District number 6, Commercial District. Resolution of intent. Benjamin Moody.
A mouthful. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The item before you is in regards to the lighting and landscape maintenance districts throughout the city. The process before you is to initiate proceedings for the continuation of the lighting and landscape districts in Yuba City in accordance with state law. Every year, we come to the council. We do an update of the districts, the engineers report. We do an evaluation of the expenditures and the revenues. And we put together an engineer's report, make a recommendation for the levy to be assessed to those properties, with consideration for to have adequate reserves and consideration for the planned maintenance, and then also take into consideration that the cost doesn't spike. You know, we're looking at for a gradual increase to account for inflation and maintenance, or decrease in some cases. So the item before you is specifically in regards to districts 1 through 6. That's composed of multiple areas throughout the city. That specifically, it's a special assessment tax that pays for lighting, landscaping, and maintenance, wall improvements, and various special benefits for those particular areas. So staff has been working with LLMD consultant Wildan to do the review. The numbers that have been presented, they're really close, but they are an estimate. We had to use an estimated inflation factor because of the way the inflation is built into the engineer's report is based on May to May. And that available data for the May inflation wasn't available yet. So the public hearing set for, with this action, we're going to set a public hearing for July 19th. We'll fill in the actual numbers. So with that, staff would like to recommend that you approve recommendation A and B as presented to direct the filing of the annual reports for districts 1 through 6 and resolution of intent of order of improvements for those districts. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Any questions of Mr. Moody?
To the mayor. I have noticed that in the fiscal impact section of this, that some of the reserves are becoming, somewhat significant in the accounts. Are there any capital improvements or repairs that are being projected to be needed, or just we're now making the adjustments as to what the rates will be to slow that increase down, and what is going on with those?
So in the past, there was a max levy, and so those reserves were building to a high balance that we don't feel the needs to be that high, and so we've slowed that levy down. Right. So we're not, as you can see on the exhibit, we're not necessarily charging the max levy in those areas, and we've kind of set a policy where we're looking for we want to have a capital reserve for when a street light gets hit or there's damage to a wall, and then also have a minimum 50% of the operating budget. And so in those districts, like you see the 576,000 is a big number. And when we look into that to really try to pin that number down, it's half of the 322,000 for the operating budget. And then of those districts in 5, there's multiple areas, and what is going on in there, and what staff is working with is that a street light costs $10,000, or the wall repair costs so much. And so each of those areas has a capital reserve balance, $10,000 to $20,000, or higher, $100,000, depending on how big the district is, to have kind of an adequate reserve, and it's tallying up. But staff is definitely cognizant of that, and we're putting a lot of effort into not over levy where we can.
And I did want the public to understand a little bit more detail about what you were talking about, doing that a little earlier. It was a little bit vague. And then number 6, though, is one that was interesting because it's so high, but like you said, a couple of lights are out, knocked down, or a wall, and boom, that's all the way gone. And they do not have the ability to raise extra revenue easily. So that one would be, of course, a little bit higher on the capital improvement or emergency fund that we'd be there to cover that. So I want public to know that there are good reasons for what it is right now and stuff, so that it isn't unusually high.
Through the mayor.
Thank you.
I have an additional question. You mentioned somebody running into a power pole or street pole or light or whatever. Would we not aggressively go after their insurance or that individual to reimburse these costs rather than this coming out of the district to pay for those kinds of things?
We definitely do have a procedure in place where we try to, if there's insurance, and we have the information. So when accidents do occur, if we have the insurance, we run an estimate and a cost report, and we get those insurance dollars refunded. And we definitely reflect that where we're not double charging. We don't collect the money and charge the district. There's also cases where there isn't insurance or there isn't a report until after the fact.
All right, thank you. With that, I would
Ben, I just want to cover. Ben. When we're talking about landscape, some of our landscape, through the various contracts that we've had in the past have, I think the term was they allowed them to mature. I think in a lot of cases that was die, we're looking at some fairly significant costs moving forward. Are we not to be able to clean up some of the dead space that's out there and removal of some of the shrubs and the I know a couple of trees that are also kind of facing into that too.
Definitely. The Community Services Department just recently issued a new contract. Landscapes by Stencil is a local contractor, and there was a rigorous we really went through the agreement this year to try to set some standards and quality control to make sure that we don't have plants maturing when we don't want them to, and so there's a lot of effort. That new contractor started in March, and there's a lot of initial effort that's been going on to clean up these districts and put a lot of effort into making them look nicer.
And I will say that there's a remarkable difference that has occurred from March to now. Actually saw that contractor out 2 weeks prior to them taking over. I think they were assessing what they needed to do, went right to work, and I see them on a regular basis within those landscape areas and doing maintenance and cleaning up. So I think that staff's work with them has been tremendous, and certainly, though it may be a little bit more cost, certainly the residents are entitled to that quality of care for these districts.
Mayor, that made me think of another question. Are we applying the same conservation standards for the districts as we are for the new development? So when we're going to put something back in, we're going to make it as drought resistant and similar to what we're planning on Highway 20 to, for the future?
Yes, I mean, and we always endeavor to stay compliant with whatever the new regulations are out. But I guess we have to analyze what the trigger is. If a tree falls over, we'll replace the tree with a similar tree type of a tree. But we'll definitely look that the replacement tree will match, current water efficiency standards. We'll probably have a hard time putting a redwood in now.
Yeah. I was just meaning, the trees I can understand, but there are some bush types and brush types and then grasses that could be put in instead. I've seen some of those landscape areas to where they're absolutely devastated. Mm-hmm. And those can be put back in a complete different standard that we have now and regulations. So
And to your point, I think that the public members I've talked to that are very conscious of these landscape areas often bring up dwarf plantings, that type of plant life that that's not allowed to go to its full mature heights, that they grow within a certain constraint, and they look nice, and we're probably not going to lose them from over trim when council members react to the mature existence. So
it definitely, and we're working with a landscape consultant and with staff to come up with some themes. Different agencies, Woodland comes to mind, where they've gone, they're going away from grass, and so we're looking at different mulches and different shading with different shrubs, and so where we can implement that or require it with new development, we're looking where we could do that.
And all right, any other questions? No.
Yep.
Action from council.
With that, I would like to move this item, both A and B.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We can bring them back from their second dinner. I just wondered where they went off to. That is that extra pizza you guys brought over there. Welcome back. You guys are going to pay a lot more.
Took you guys long enough.
We
We take off and you spend half an hour on one item. I can't believe that.
Well, we had to raise the rates in your area.